Hi everyone. Before we begin, a very small trigger warning for today's episode. We are going to be talking about ghosts for a little bit, nothing particularly scary, but if you're someone who gets spooked easily and you're listening to this alone at night, you've been warned. You can either save this section for daylight hours or continue listening and prove that you're braver than I am. First, we need to discuss the fallout from last week's question because apparently I misunderstood the meaning of the word haunt and have since been informed by multiple people that I may no longer qualify as someone who likes English. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about some of the absolutely unhinged responses I received from people who apparently already have a list of people they would like to torment from beyond the grave. Then I want to switch gears and talk about women led films, why some female characters seem to get judged more harshly than male characters, and whether some of that criticism is fair or whether some of it comes from biases we don't even realize we have. And finally, as always, I will share my achievement of the day and leave you with a question that I think is going to send a lot of you down memory lane. So, whether you're commuting, doing laundry, cooking food, avoiding your responsibilities, or just looking for something to listen to, let's get into it. Right. Let's start with the ghosts. Now, when I answered last week's question myself, I said that if I became a ghost, I'd haunt my friends. Not because I dislike them, quite the opposite. My logic was that if I became a ghost tomorrow, I'd probably miss my friends. And they're all in different locations. So, why would I spend my afterlife hanging around people I hate when I could continue hanging out with people I actually like whilst visiting these people in those multiple locations? Two birds, one stone. But this was apparently the wrong answer. Several people questioned whether I understood what the word haunt meant. My credentials as someone who likes English were challenged. There were discussions about revoking my grammar Nazi status. I'd like the record to show that I did not allow this. So, naturally, after being publicly corrected, I did what any reasonable person would do. I went and did my research. So, first, let's begin with the definition of a ghost. A ghost, according to the dictionary, is generally the spirit or soul of a dead person that appears to the living. Fair enough. But the more interesting word here is haunt. One definition is to appear repeatedly as a ghost. Another definition is to visit repeatedly or remain in someone's thoughts, which means that technically speaking, my answer was not entirely wrong. I simply chose the friendlier interpretation. The rest of you chose violence. I think my mistake is that I do not watch enough horror. When someone says the word ghost, my brain thinks of two things. One is the ghosting and dating, and the other is that my brain thinks about Casper, the friendly ghost. And for anyone who doesn't know Casper, he was a cartoon ghost whose entire personality was basically being friendly. He wasn't trying to scare people. He just wanted to be friends. And that's what I also want. Apparently, everyone else's brain immediately goes to revenge, psychological warfare, and making someone's lights flicker at 3 in the morning. While doing this highly scientific research, by the way, I also discovered that there are several theories about ghosts. The traditional theory says ghosts are people with unfinished business. Another theory says ghosts are really just emotional imprints left behind by significant events, almost like a recording replaying itself. There's also a psychological theory that many ghost experiences happen when people are grieving and their brains are adjusting to the loss of someone they love. So, after approximately 14 minutes of research, I have reached a conclusion. Some ghosts seek revenge. These ghosts are probably going to be my friends in the future. Some ghosts have unfinished business. Some ghosts are trapped between worlds. And apparently, I'd be a ghost whose unfinished business is continuing to bother my friends. Which, if you're being honest, feels pretty accurate. But now that I've done my research and defended my understanding of the English language, let's get into your responses because some of y'all had plans. Now, just before I get into the responses, I'd like to point out that probably there would have been more responses if some of y'all wouldn't have ghosted me in like quotation ghosting me after I asked a question about ghosts. The irony is not lost on me. But the people who did answer gave me some very interesting responses. So let's start with the first one. This person actually made me feel a little bit better about my own answer because I was beginning to think I was the only person who had misunderstood what haunt meant. So this person said that she would haunt me. Not because she dislikes me, thankfully. Her reasoning was that we talk every day. So if she became a ghost, she'd simply continue doing that. And honestly, I respect the consistency. One thing I'd probably not thought about when I asked the question was that ghosts can actually talk with you as well. So I think I would be grateful to this person to sort of add that layer to the question and say that she'd be always there to talk with me. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate the validation that I'm not the only person whose first instinct was friendship rather than revenge. One other person who responded said that she would haunt every family member who harassed her family or caused them trouble over the years or her trouble over the years. And I feel like this person really understood the assignment. She was not confused. She did not have any Casper energy like me. She had a very clear plan. I'd like to say one thing is that I would not want to be on that list. But if she were visiting me for friendly reasons, sure, come on over. The other thing is that what I thought about with this is that there would be a few family members that I'd like to haunt myself, but then again, do I want to see their faces? Maybe not. Um, Another first person said she would haunt a former landlord who made her life miserable for a period of time. I think I'd also like to haunt this person, so just give me his name and address. So I thought that was a very relatable answer. I've had my share of very bad landlords, so I can totally understand where the hate's coming from. She also had a few other candidates in mind. Let's just say some were personal, some were public figures, and because I do not want to get political, I will not be naming these people, but I would say that they have clearly earned their place on her shortlist. Then I had another friend who genuinely could not think of anyone. She said she did not really have any enemies and could not think of a single person she wanted to haunt, which I thought was wholesome and surprising also because I'd imagine that she could have thought of at least me in a friendly way, but okay, maybe not. Then I asked my mom, and my mom, being my mom, said she would not want to haunt anybody because she does not like scaring people. Her pure response was that why would I want to go and torture someone? I'd rather just not be a ghost or do it at all, which I thought was very pure and very mom answer and very possible when it comes to my mother. So just who my friend who could not think of any enemies and my mom have that in common. They are very nice people, and that's all I can say about them. Then there was a bonus answer from a friend's husband. I'd like to thank him. Thank you for being the first boy listener, and thank you for sharing your answer. Unlike most people, he wasn't interested in haunting friends, family, co-workers, landlords. No, he wanted to use his ghost powers on celebrities and the owners of a certain football club that may or may not be causing him emotional distress, which is honestly a level of commitment to sports that I both admire and fear. And I think his answer made me think of a particular incident, which I'd like to recollect now, which was the 2015 Roland Garros final, as Stanislas Wawrinka beat Novak Djokovic. And Novak Djokovic was on a fantastic run. And probably I would like to also haunt Stanislas Wawrinka for like one day. Maybe I won't spend a lot of energy on him, but just that one day, I want to do it because that caused me so much emotional distress that day. I can't even tell you. So, after listening to all these responses, I think the first thing I've learned is that probably there will be more people than my friends that I'd like to haunt in the truest sense of the word haunt. I've also learned that there are several categories of people. There are people who would spend the afterlife with loved ones. There are people who would spend the afterlife settling scores. There are people who are simply too nice to haunt anyone. And then there are people who would spend eternity managing football clubs more effectively. And honestly, it tells me that most of my friends are a lot more prepared for the afterlife than I am. Now, to segue into something that I've been thinking about this entire week, and something I'd like to say that because we were speaking about ghosts, a topic that a lot of men I have seen sort of ghost are women led films in general. And so that's something that I've been thinking about mainly because I saw a film recently called Ma Behan, starring Madhuri Dixit, Tripti Dimri, and Dharna Durga. Dharna Durga is a social media influencer, comedian, sort of. She really has good content. So if you've not been following her or if you're not aware of her, maybe you can give her a follow. But the other two actresses you know pretty well, I'm assuming. My listeners are mostly Indian, so I'm hoping that you'll already know who these people are. But coming back to the topic at hand, which is women-led films or films that talk about a lot, talk about, say, bashing the patriarchy or talk about women in general. And I've been thinking about the kind of reactions they get. And I don't think I'm talking about men and how they react to it, because most of the responses are usually wild. There are some chosen men who react very nicely to it. And I think these men are already men that are evolved. And so they probably always react well. But then most of the reactions I've seen online are like, why do we need to make a movie like this? What was so funny about it? Is this a topic that requires us spending so much time on it? The acting wasn't great, whatever. Like, there have been all of those responses. There has been a lot of trolling, and I don't want to concentrate on that today. That is not the point of this conversation that I want to have with you. I think what I have been thinking about more honestly is that when I see a female character on screen, and I think the characters in Ma Behan are way better handled, I would say, than the ones that I am probably referring to. I think I am talking about that one character who's sort of like bossy or judgy on screen, and I'm thinking more about her. And what I've started doing more recently is that whenever I think that a character is bossy or judgy, the first question I ask myself is, if this character were a man, would I judge them the same way? And if the answer is yes, then I can judge both the women, and if it were a man, then the man. But what I'm thinking is that these characters can be annoying, they can be rude, they can be difficult. Um, and what I'm thinking is that so many male characters are those qualities that, like, they're arrogant, stubborn, but we think of them as cool, we think of them as suave, we think of them as, ooh, who I want to, like, I want to meet a guy like this, whatever. Like, I don't know what your traumas are, but um what I'm thinking of is the question that I want to ask everyone is that, do you also think about what I was thinking about? I feel like this is getting a little out of hand and I'm rambling a little bit, but do you also ask yourself whether you feel exactly the same when you see a man being those things on screen? Do you also get irritated with the man, for example, or is it just the woman? And if you're not getting irritated with the man, that's fair. I mean, we've been conditioned a certain way, and if you have not asked yourself this question, totally, I can understand that. I mean, but that's something I have just been doing because maybe it's my Libra sun that's been making me do it. But what I've been thinking about is that I want to be fair. I want to judge the woman as much as that there is a man on screen, and so maybe that's where it's coming from. And just to maybe give you all a little more context, I've been watching a new British crime series called Vera, and so the woman in that show is pretty bossy, and like, she can be mad at someone just for no reason. And initially I was like, why is this woman so annoying? And then later I was like, you know what, would I judge a guy who is this annoying? Like, you would imagine any male boss at the workspace being hysterical and angry and bossy and rude, and probably you'd be like, oh, it's just a guy. But because it was a woman, I was judging her. And so um I don't know, is it like a bias I wanted to examine? And so probably that's where I'm coming from and asking you this question. Do we expect more from women? I think the answer is yes. But I think what my question is that, do we expect more from women because we know they are capable of change? Do we expect nothing from men because we know that they are not changing? We see every day some new nonsense and bullshit that's going on in the world, And I feel like we're always surprised by it for some weird reason. Some of us maybe not so much as I am, but I'm always surprised by the sort of the intensity of it, or the depth of it, or the fact that there's an academy where they're teaching men how to rape women, or there is another comedian on stage who's sort of egging his audience and I'd say encouraging his follower to abuse women and harass women or sexually assault them. I mean, there's always something going on in the world, and so probably that's where my standards for a man are low, and I just probably am sick and tired, or I've given up, and I don't want to increase those standards because there's no point. I don't want to sound hopeless, but the question is that do we have that standard for women because we expect more from them, or because we know they're capable of change, so maybe they should still keep holding on to that standard, and we don't want to lower ourselves because the man won't change? Is that why when we look at a character on screen, we want that woman to be a certain way? I think a lot of that conditioning is going away now, and we are liking women who are flawed and who are not like super moms or super women, and I think that's really nice to see. But inherently I still feel like a lot of us have that bias, and so I want to question that. Is that something that you all like have? And let me know what you all think. Am I rambling? I think this has been a really long sort of section, or just me rambling about um why I think that we should question ourselves when we find someone bossy on screen. Is that if it were a man, would we question his character? And so yeah, I think I have been struggling with this all week, and so I wanted to talk about it. I've been going back and forth, and I'd love to hear what all of you are thinking about this. If you've not seen the movie, maybe go catch it. It's a fun one. It's a dark comedy, so it's not something really serious, but if you're looking for something serious, Thappad's always a good movie I recommend. um if you're a female listener, I apologize to you for being a woman in this world. That's all I can do, I guess. I don't apologize, but I feel where you're coming from. I understand your struggles. I didn't mean to I didn't mean to trigger anything for like a serious topic. This is something that I've been going back and forth on, and I'm struggling with, and so that's the reason why I thought I'd discuss it with everyone who's listening to this podcast. One last thing I'd say is that the next time you find yourself getting irritated with a woman on screen, maybe just run a little experiment. Replace her with a man, same dialogue, same behavior, same attitude, and then ask yourself whether you feel exactly the same way. If the answer is yes, fair enough. If the answer is no, maybe there's something interesting worth examining there. Anyway, I've spent far too much time thinking about this week. I've also rambled on about it here for around 8 minutes, so I apologize. But yeah, help me out maybe. Right, so let's move on to something a little lighter. My achievement for the day. Let's think about it. This one's a hard one, I think. But I got some yoga done in the morning, so maybe that counts. I got a few applications done as well. I have a few more that I want to finish before dinner, and so probably that would be my achievement of the day. And now, before I leave you all for I don't know how many days more, let's get to the question of the day. This one's a fun one. I think it's been a little heavy with ghosts and I don't know, burgers and pizzas. It's all led you all down very interesting paths in your life. But this one's something I want to learn about everyone because I feel like I don't know this about all of my friends. We talk about everything, but I don't think I have asked you all this question yet. Who was the first celebrity you ever saw in real life? How old were you? Where did you see them? And most importantly, one, were you excited to see them? And then two, how excited were you to see them? So yeah, and did you get to meet them? Did you get to take a picture? I want all the details. So send me your stories. Of course, you all are sending me voice notes, so I appreciate you all. Uh, as always, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful weekend if you're listening now. If you're listening later in the week, maybe a wonderful week. I'll see you soon. Thank you for listening, like I said, and bye bye.